Welcome back everyone for the Easter Egg and Crazy Cameos, Cobra Kai Season 6, Part 3, Watch Party! As the show ended triumphantly, there were a lot of cameos and Easter eggs in the finale. Some were just fun little nods to the crew, and some were a little more significant. And of course, most of the biggest cameos and Easter eggs we expected never happened. Which begs the question, what may have happened or wanted to happen but didn't? Now obviously one of the biggest twists of the show was Daniel and all the students donning Cobra Kai gis for the final fight. Now as you recall, a dojo in the Sekai Taikai was only supposed to have 6 fighters, but screw that, they all came out to watch. It was a major twist for Daniel, who openly regretted his past in the dojo.
I used to be a Cobra Kai. It's not something I'm proud of, Sam.
Also notice the senseis don't have their name on the front. This seems to be a continuation from the movie where Kreese didn't have his name on the front. However, here they do have the logo on the back. Of course you remember Terry Silver's
"Imagine how easy it's gonna be to wrap Cobra Kai gis around both your kids."
That set Daniel off back in season 5. He was ready to fight. Whoever would have thought that it would be Daniel himself who put the gis on his kids? It's an interesting twist on the callback because once Silver technically gets what he wanted, he no longer wants it. At this point, he wanted Cobra Kai to slither away and die. But here it is, back and threatening his Iron Dragons, complete with new Cobras Anthony and Samantha LaRusso. It also completes a further callback for Sam, who actually admired the gi oh so long ago.
Yeah, I gotta admit, this is a pretty cool gi.
Thank you.
I mean, the snake's a little on the evil side, but I like the colors.
So clearly from the first season, Sam had her eyes on the awesome style of Cobra Kai. You have to admit, she does look good in it. Of course, then everyone looks awesome in it. Except, it brings us to our first missed cameo. No return of Aisha. You can almost imagine Aisha watching the fight on television and specifically commenting on Sam wearing that gi. You can imagine she'd say something like, "You do look badass in that, Sam. That snake is not evil at all, and your dad isn't flipping out." Of course, she would also comment on Sensei Lawrence. She'd be chill. "Yeah, I knew he could do it." And you're certain she would be happy for Tori. She found a way to triumph. But alas, Aisha is just one of the many cameos that did not happen. Now perhaps one of the most important Easter eggs, which was a subtle theme of the show, comes at the end in the repaired Cobra Kai dojo. Now as you remember, Daniel leased the dojo again, and some riffraff had done a number on it. Stuff torn down and graffiti all over, especially on the creed on the wall. Specifically around the No Mercy. Now before we go any further, I do want to point out the graffiti is lackluster. I give it a 4 out of 10. There's no profanity, there are no rocket ships, none of that. In fact, there's a heart. Who does graffiti with a heart? Goodness, that is sad. I expect much better next time. Anyway, the graffiti and the specific heart over the No Mercy is not accidental. Obviously, it needs to be repainted. That brings us to one of the more subtle Easter eggs in the whole show. You see, when Johnny first put the creed on the wall, it wasn't perfect. The No Mercy was slightly tilted. It wasn't much. You can see the O is a little crooked and the words then run at a slight angle. It's not perfectly aligned the way Strike First and Strike Hard are. This was always a visual metaphor to the problem within Cobra Kai. The No Mercy attitude, as taught by Kreese and learned by Johnny, wasn't perfect. You may not notice it at first. In fact, in some ways, it brings power and confidence, like when Miguel won the cafeteria fight. However, it had problems. Hawk went too far and lost his anchor. The issue with the wall was even briefly referenced in season 2 when Johnny made the back room.
Looks good.
I used a level this time.
He talked about using a level here because of the uneven letters in this one. So in the end, Johnny had to fix up the dojo and repaint the wall. Obviously, this time he used a level. It is straight. In a way, the No Mercy philosophy is straight and balanced. Johnny knows what to teach.
No mercy. Means not being Mr. Nice Guy. It's the hardest one to understand. The fact is, if you're too nice, the world's gonna walk all over you.
His lesson is that kids, and everyone really, have to stand up for themselves. You can't just wait for the world to come to you, you have to go after it. You have to know what you want and then go get it. It's not just about knocking your opponent's ass when they're already down. It's about letting others know they can't take advantage of you. You earn respect. The words are straight, the message is clear. The mailman was a nice little Easter egg to Karate Kid 2. I don't know if mailmen normally wander in the backyard of a house like this, but I guess if you're at Miyagi-Do, why not? I did find Kumiko's letter a little disappointing. I was hoping for her to come back at least one more time. But then, that is another missed cameo. Kumiko had her moment in Season 3 and that was it. Now while we're on the topic of missed cameos, there is one significant one to point out. That is Dutch. We now know from an interview with Billy Zabka that episode 15 was originally going to open with a flashback to Johnny visiting Dutch in prison. According to Zabka, the scene was going to play out in similar fashion. Johnny would say they're old and washed up, except Dutch wouldn't take it and say there are no second chances. You can imagine that it would be a very poignant scene. Dutch, who is in prison, is the one who is saying, "Don't give up." Maybe he realizes he doesn't have a second chance, which is why he's pushing Johnny to do better. Unfortunately, we never got the scene. Chad McQueen wanted to do it, but his health deteriorated before he could. Ultimately, the decision was made to switch it to Johnny's mother's grave. It is mostly the same scene. Perhaps it is even better in some ways. We'll never know for sure. Either way, Dutch was specifically mentioned early in the season.
Remember Dutch? Dutch was so freaking cool.
Yeah, he's in prison.
As a way to keep him fresh in the minds of the audience. It didn't work out. Dutch does have a line in the flashback skeleton fight.
What's the matter? Mommy not here to dress you?
So he found his way into Season 6 after all. Now after discussing Dutch, I suppose it's worth bringing up the other cameo or return we thought was going to come but didn't happen. Julie Pierce. The building of Season 6 with the Miyagi box and the inclusion of the name Kyusuke Miyagi were all hinting at the return of Hilary Swank as Julie. We now know the writers hoped and intended for that to happen. Unfortunately, the budget was running thin and the story long, and so maybe there was only room to bring her in for 1 or maybe 2 episodes. It looks like Hilary Swank wanted something a little more substantial before she came back and so passed on the offer. That explains her awkward thinking about it back when she gave that interview last year. She said, "I don't think I am," because she was offered and said no. Oh well, the intention was there. We don't have any specifics, but my own thinking is some of Miyagi's explanation that Julie would have had instead went to Lucille in this scene. There may have been further explanation in regards to the name, as she could say that was the name she knew him as. There is also another important spot. At the end, Robbie and Tori strike a sponsorship deal. Notice the name of the woman who offers it.
Hi, I'm Julia with Icon Branding.
Yeah, Julie. I think it's very likely this character who happens to work in a karate adjacent field could have been Julie Pierce. She helps Daniel learn about Mr. Miyagi, then gives Robbie and Tori the boost they need to continue the professional karate career. And so, poop on you, Counselor Blatt. You were probably a shitty field hockey player anyway. So, as it was, the story was there, but Hilary Swank turned it down. I was right, but I can't control what she wants or ultimately decides. Truthfully, I was never a big fan of Hilary Swank. Boys Don't Cry was stupidly overrated. Seriously, I remember watching that in my sister's apartment and thinking, why is everyone gushing so hard on this? That can further be seen as a fact in that no one ever mentions it anymore. You see people talk about Million Dollar Baby. No one ever brings up Boys Don't Cry. I looked for it. Never happened. Once. Maybe she'll be involved in some spin-off in the future, or maybe Swank had a terrible time on Next Karate Kid, is embarrassed by the movie, and never wanted to think of it again. Either way, it's all done now. Show creators John Hurwitz and Josh Heald gave themselves a cameo at the very end. It is a pitch for a Back to the Future reboot. Okay, it's fun, though it feels a little gratuitous. I may make jokes on occasion, but seriously, Hayden's cameo as Silver's lawyer Ezra was actually pretty cool. John and Josh feel a little unnatural, like it doesn't belong there. You can sort of imagine this is how the series began. Now, a fun cameo was Elizabeth Berkley, who played Moon's mom. She was on Saved by the Bell, which I think started in the 80s, 89. She played Jessie. She certainly did well as Moon's mom, and you can wonder about Sage. Is that Moon's older brother or sister? Who knows? I like to think Moon has a brother. I actually think it makes sense for Moon and why she is the way she is. Either way, it was a lot of fun. She's not right for Chozen, but helped him get over his hurt with Kumiko. That's an important moment. Going back to Easter eggs, there was one Easter egg we were all super expecting, convinced would happen, and just kind of faded away. That involves the scroll. The scroll Anthony found? The way it was set up and then called back, you thought something was going to happen. Maybe Anthony was going to be the protector of the LaRusso family or something. I don't know, but it is kind of weird this just sort of faded away. Maybe this is for the future spin-off series. I don't know. Now you can sort of tell the final match was designed to have a lot more cameos in it. They had Nestor and Lyle at the bar. That's pretty good, but I thought there was room for more, and indeed that is the case. Hayden Schlossberg confirmed they wanted to have a lot of other characters in the final watching Gianni fight, but they just sort of ran out of money. You can imagine Bobby and Jimmy watching the fight, cheering their old Cobra Kai friend. I'd like to think Counselor Blatt was watching with her older sister and her friend Allie. That would be fun for Allie, her ex-boyfriend fighting while being coached by her other ex-boyfriend. Mike Barnes would definitely be tuning in. He had what it takes to be a Sekai Taikai champion and would be watching with total respect for Johnny. I mentioned Aisha, of course, rooting for her former sensei. And how about Freddy Fernandez? He's watching his old buddy Daniel, probably eating some barbecue at the same time. Unfortunately, we never saw him. He's likely another casualty of the thin budget. I also like to think Kyler and Brooks would be watching. Kyler would just brag. He'd say, "I taught him that move, that's all me." You know how Kyler is. So even though we didn't see any of them on screen, you can certainly imagine they were all watching. Not everything takes place on screen, and I think it makes Johnny's win all the more special. There's some smaller cameos. Some of the show's writers are in the bar. That's Bob Dearden and Joe Pirelli. Luan Thomas is another writer at this bar serving drinks. Various post-production crew and some of the children of the actors or whoever are in various shots. Frank Helmer, the show's costume designer since season 1, is the tailor helping Johnny find a suit. You can almost imagine this is how some of the costume fittings have gone in real life. So that is a look at some of the more important Easter eggs and cameos. Ultimately, the show handled nostalgia the best way you can. Ultimately, everything served the story, and that is the secret to its success. Don't be gratuitous, make it make sense. Have a great day. I'll see you at the next watch party.